All right, well, let's go ahead and get started here. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today on Benovate Explores, which is our webinar series exploring topics within the benefit side of our industry. My name is Mike Larkin. I'll be your host today. My role at Benovate is as a senior business analyst. I work with many of our partners on their integrations and strategies, as well as work with our clients on their programming needs. For those of you that are joining us for the first time, welcome. We've had a few different discussions on employee engagement throughout the year, and we'll be continuing to do that today with some of our stories from the field. Now, I've asked a couple of our sales team to join us today, as well as Kat Rowe, who's our lead content specialist. Please feel free to chime in anytime if you're joining us through the live Hangouts link today. If you're watching on the landing page, you can tweet us at Benovate with the hashtag Benovate Explores. All right, well, let's get started here. So if everyone on the call could introduce themselves real quick. Sean, why don't you start us off and tell us a little bit about what you do at Benovate?
Sure. Sean Sullivan, Senior Sales Representative here, consultant. I've been with Benovate for about 5 years now and got some background in the wellness space and on the sales side of things. So it's actually my 5-year anniversary today.
Excellent. And Kat, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. I've been at Benovate for about 3.5 years, and my role has kind of evolved. It started more with client management and has turned into the lead content specialist. So that's given me a good look into many of the moving parts that go into running an effective program. So my role now as content specialist is establishing what our content guidelines are for research, making sure we're following our voice that you use in the platform, evaluating the effectiveness of our content, and determining the priorities that we need to make sure we're continuing to engage our members and guiding our content and getting there.
Excellent. And Dave, what about you?
Thank you, Mike. I'm Dave Bondison. I'm the Vice President of Sales at Benovate and Client Management. I actually been with Benovate for the last, since January. I have over 30 years of experience in the employee benefits business, both from a broker, carrier side, and actually built my own engagement company at one point. So I look forward to talking with everyone today.
Excellent. So, when we, the subject for today is to really talk about, engaging employees. And, when we hear and we talk to our clients about engagement, we hear a lot about participation versus engagement. And when we start to work with a new group, we always hear that participation metric around, building out a wellness program previously. What actually connects with employees, though?
Well, I think, that focus on participation is, they're really focused on getting the members onto the platform. But what really connects is that, how do we get that employee really engaged and deep diving into the solution that they have? We want to be able to focus that individual on their own story. And you want to, and how they can understand that story and take action to meet their own goals. John?
Yeah, I think when you really start to drill down to each individual member, that's really where we see significant uptick, where it becomes about relevancy. And I think in a lot of cases, when we look in the marketplace, wellness programs don't do that. They don't make the content relevant. They don't make the resources relevant to the member. They just assume that everybody wants to run a 5K or that everybody is interested in pre-diabetes, when that may not matter to that individual. So I think that's very significant.
I think it gets down to the personalization. I mean, we see and we hear that everyone talks about personalization, but when you peel that onion, it's really not personalized to that individual. And we're hearing more and more, especially from the broker community and employers, that on the surface it works well. We get the participation, but over time it might wane, and because it's not personalized to that, to our people. and they need that personalization to continue to take action and have evolving content. Many times we hear that content, becomes static. And that's why you do see falling participation in programs, because that content is static. And then when it's evolving, ever changing, addressing to that individual person, they're going to stay more engaged into the platform.
Yeah, that's really one of the goals that we have when somebody joins the platform. They're really starting kind of at a high level, and the more we ask them questions, the more they're doing activities, the more we're really able to dive into what's really important to them. And it's not just from a purely health standpoint that you might think of. It's not just, okay, we're going to talk specifically about diabetes today. It might be trying to figure out, okay, what is impacting that person from a financial standpoint or a relationship standpoint that's impacting their ability to deal with their diabetes. So we're trying to really take a look at all different angles so that we're getting at the root of the problem and figuring out what they really need.
So it sounds like that at really the core of actually engaging our members is making sure that it's personalized and relevant. How do we make sure when we're designing our content and when we're engaging with our clients that we're building a library that's going to do that for them?
Sure. So we have thousands of pieces of content within the system. So what will happen when somebody is a new member, they log in, and we're trying to build a relationship with that member. So it's almost like we're meeting a new friend. When you meet a new person, you're not going to start diving right into the nitty-gritty and heavy topics. You're going to start by asking what they like to do. Do you like to go for bike rides? Do you like to read? What are some of these things that interest you? So we're able to kind of build that rapport with the member. And as we're building that rapport and getting people to really trust us in what they're learning about in the platform, we're going to get deeper into those really important topics that might be a little bit harder to grasp, or they might be a little bit more sensitive.
And that seems to always be based on the feedback that we get, that seems to be one of the biggest complaints about how kind of quote unquote wellness programs work today. One question that we did have come up, and this is more for Dave and Sean, is when we're talking to people out there about their programming, about their benefits, what's sort of the number one concern that you always hear, or what's the one thing that people tend to do wrong when they look at how to implement a program like Benovate's?
Well, I think that one of the things is that they look at implementing something that thinking that everyone in their population is going to participate. That's kind of one size fits all, and and so they'll do things like put up flyers, or let's all wear a tracker. Let's track our activities. Let's go for that walk or that run. And not everyone in your populations wants to do that. Not everyone wants to wear a tracker. I'll give you an example. We were just in a broker meeting, and that came up, that they had an employer group that they said, there's a good portion of the population that don't want to wear trackers. Well, you have to engage and find a way to engage those type of employees. Because I really think that we look at engagement as the journey that provides the mirror into your own well-being. And then we provide the specific education and the actionable steps to allow you to complete your goals that you may set for yourself.
And I'll add to that too, is we had a meeting with a broker as we were showcasing the platform to them and really talking about the different ways that we go about providing that nudge to a person, whether it's the engagement score or whether it's the incentive itself, and then actually bringing all that information right to the member forward facing. She used the words multidimensional, and I thought that was very powerful, because she's looking at it from her scope, from her perspective, and saying, wow, you've got a lot of bases covered here, because everybody is going to be different, right? We're not going to be able to just use one motivator for everyone. we've got to have a multiplicity there, right? So that word multidimensional, I think, is a very, accurate one.
And I'll add one other thing to that is that, we see trends and we hear more that it's not engaging all the population when you have that kind of one size fits all type of solution. That what happens is that you engage probably your healthy people, your marginally at risk people, and you don't engage across the whole spectrum of health, and that's important. That's important, for your population and your well-being of your company, because it reduces absenteeism, increases presenteeism. You have the ideal employee; they're motivated, so you have to be able to engage and provide the right activities across the spectrum of health.
I think one other thing that I've heard.
You mentioned. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Catherine.
I was just going to add that a lot of times employees can get frustrated because they're not sure where to find information, or they're not sure if they've done certain requirements. They don't know where to find it, and then they just kind of give up. They're just trying to get that background. What we do is pull all of that together into one spot so that it's really easy for somebody to find that information, know what they need to do, but not just that back, have the follow-up. So you need to take their health assessment, but then after that, there are all sorts of things that they can do to keep them revisiting the results from that health assessment. It's not just we'll do it now and then in a year we'll look at it again.
Yeah, it's sort of the analogy that I've heard used before is that it's kind of the difference of going to the library and trying to find a book yourself versus going to the library and asking the librarian where to find something. So, Dave and Sean, you both brought up brokers. I think a question that always comes up is, where do the brokers or kind of population health consultants, where do they come into the mix, and how can they best deliver value to their clients?
Well, the broker is wearing many different hats and bringing many different solutions to the table, and wellness is one of them. And when a broker can actually see where a wellness or well-being program fits in and helps with the other benefits they're trying to provide or services they want to provide, it kind of wraps it up to be able to, if they're bringing in a disease management program or a prescription drug program, or they need emphasis on certain benefits, and being able to do that through an engagement platform that actually touches the individual, it brings more value to what they are offering as a whole. The broker is really the catalyst to, and we are working with those brokers that really see this as a more global solution for their clients. That it's not only covering the wellness spectrum, but it's covering the engagement, it's covering the communication spectrum. So those brokers that we're working extremely well with see that. They see the value of that.
Yeah, so a broker I was just talking to yesterday, is he started to see what our platform does and how it works, et cetera. But from a true engagement standpoint, we talk specifically about one of the number one things that he deals with when he's talking to employers, especially right around enrollment or pre-enrollment or even post-enrollment. And the word he used was fatigue, right? So that HR person is just dealing with a lot of fatigue on having to wear multiple hats, like you alluded to with brokers, but the fact that from a communication standpoint, keeping that information, pre-enrollment, letting them know what their options are. And he saw the ability to do that from a more customization level, more personalization level, that they can articulate that message better, communicate it better, and they can do it in a number of various different ways, and they can do it right through the platform. So again, for me, right, you forget, 75% of what you learned about your employee, your benefits in terms of what's available to you and what your options are, 10 minutes after you walk out of that meeting, because you just get system overload, and obviously one of the things you only care about is, okay, how much money am I spending? What's my deductible? And then you forget everything else. You forget all those resources and all those things that are there in place for you. And as Kat alluded to, right, it's all in one place. It's all right there. We have the ability to really make that more of that personalized touch. to that end user, that member.
One last thing is that the brokers that we're working with are starting to realize, and they see the solutions that they're using now, that they're not only becoming static, but they're not really delivering what they expected in with wellness and well-being. It's falling short, and sometimes it falls short right from implementation. In a broker meeting I was in yesterday, that was an issue, that they have a current solution that falls dramatically short for them. So right, start from implementation in many of their groups, and then service and ongoing content to not make it static. So they're looking for what's next, the state-of-the-art type of programs that will really truly get down to that individual personalization, and they see a big difference when they see that with us.
You know, that brings up a good point, actually. The when we work with some of these clients that have had programs in the past and, to varying degrees of success, when you stumble out of the gate when it comes to kind of launching a program, setting it up and enrolling members, is there a way to get back from that if you stumble on that start, or are you just going to limp along until the next vendor comes along?
I guess from a perspective is that it's tough to come back from that. If you're not engaging on a personal level, it's tough to come back from that. You can set up as many flyers as you want, but if the member immediately gets involved in a program on a platform and they have a negative taste to that experience, it's tough to get them back. There has to be another type of game changer for them. You have to find some other catalyst to engage them into going back in that solution. And you have to be able, I think where we see our difference is that, we're providing many of those different type of tech catalysts along the whole spectrum of the demographics of a group.
Mm-hmm. And I think when it comes to changing vendors too, we've worked with a lot of people who have said, our last vendor was horrible. We had a really bad experience. Nobody really wants to try anything new anymore. What we've really encouraged is that we recognize the past failure that other vendor had and really be open and communicate what is changing to make this experience better. I think when we're not ignoring the fact that something in the past didn't work, and the client is really making sure that employees know this is a new program, this is going to be different, then they're a lot more willing to try out something new. So, I think being open and transparent is really a key there.
So when we look at those kind of launches or programs that have kind of had a couple stumbles here and there, the word that I usually hear with those is that participation was very low, and they're not even really talking about engagement. Catherine, when you look at the content that we deploy and we look at engagement as kind of a metric, how does that differ from participation?
A lot of vendors will consider participation being somebody enrolled in a program and they're happy with that number. We got X number of people to enroll. We're not happy with stopping there. We look at how many people are actually logging into the platform, completing activities. So not just signing in, looking at it and leaving, but actually completing activities on a monthly basis, but then taking it a step further, how many people are actually completing activities that are related to health that they have. So we're really trying to dive in and figure out not just how many people are going to open the program. We don't really care about that as much. We want people to actually be doing something that's going to impact their health, and that's really where we're focusing our metrics on. What can we do to continue to people to engage in their risks? And I think as what we've done is really done a lot of new developments, getting more content into the platform that allows people to engage with some of that risk mitigation even deeper than they have in the past, and deeper than they have been able to in other programs. So.
Because, when we look at, for example, the new contests feature that we just rolled out not too long ago, participation in the contest is all well and good, having people sign up. But if they're not actually engaging with the contest and participating on a day-to-day basis, we're not going to be that impactful for them, are we?
Right, exactly. And that's what's really going to keep people coming back too. If they are hooked on the contest or a course that they're taking, then they're a lot more likely to come back in because they want to continue participating in that contest and really getting their steps up or getting their engagement score up, completing a course, that sort of thing. So having those things that are really strung together, not just a one-time thing, but something that's happening on a daily basis is really what we get people to do to come back into the platform regularly.
So Dave and Sean, when we're talking to clients, is the conversation, does it usually start around participation in the program and then engagement is kind of the next level of where they want it to be? Or what does the next level look like to them?
Well, many times I think that, out there in the real world, they synonymously look at participation and engagement as really being the same in their minds. They don't truly comprehend all the time what real engagement is. And as Kat alluded to just a moment ago, how we look at it, where we get down really to the granular level of managing, looking at those employees that we consider managed, where they're working on their top risks. Now that's more important to a broker and to a client, in that it's giving them a little more in the crystal ball of what's happening in their group. We look at, and traditionally we've looked at the front end stuff, doing biometrics and doing HRAs and in the first of the plan year. And that's a snapshot in the very beginning of the plan year. 3 months later, it's irrelevant, really. They also look at claims at the end after it's happened. That's after the fact. And when we bring the real engagement, and when you not talking about participation, but talking about managing those individuals that have the chronic, the acute conditions, and manage those and give them the crystal ball to be able to take beyond what we do, other actionable items as a consultant or employer, other programs that might help reduce overall their claim costs and the cost of healthcare for them.
So it sounds like if we have that snapshot at the beginning of the year, and then we're going to look at claims as sort of an outcome, there's this big space in between that's not really being addressed proactively. And you mentioned one of the metrics that we use there, Dave, managed. Can you just give a quick once over on what managed means as a metric?
Well, for us, managed means that you as a member are engaged in what has been identified through whatever data we've brought in through biometrics, through your HRA, and then what you've done on our platform. And you're engaging and actually doing 20 points or more in your top risks that have been identified, top 30 risks that's been identified, and you're doing 20 points or more each month into that. That's engagement. That's where employees, and we hear that. We hear that from members, where this is a different way of how I'm able to look at my health. It's the mirror. They're looking in the mirror. They're seeing what they need to work on, and they can say, oh, I can give you personally, being new to this program, that it made me think about different things that I haven't thought about in years, and take actionable steps on those because of how the content was delivered.
Yeah, and what I would also add to that is from a health risk assessment, right? Traditionally, health risk assessment's done right around renewal time, and then what do they do with that information? Well, you as a member, you answer a bunch of questions. Maybe it's 15 minutes, 20 minutes, even 30 minutes of your life, and then after that, it's done. It's set aside, right? We take more of we take a much different approach, a holistic approach, where you're taking that HRA, but you're taking it throughout the year, right? You're answering questions, you're answering ongoing questions. It's prompting you, it's urging you, it's motivating you, right, to interact and engage in that platform, because as we all know, where your health is at in January doesn't mean it's going to be the same in March, April, May, June, right? Something's going to happen. You might be in an auto accident where you get rear-ended and you have pain in your neck, or there's something from a stress level standpoint with a spouse or a loved one, a child, or you have a kid, right? So a lot of things change in one's life, and I think that we do an excellent job of really bringing that to the forefront. Again, back forward-facing to that member, and then bringing value to that member. It makes it more valuable to them to see that information in front of them and point to their risks, as Dave talked about.
And that seems to really be why the concentration needs to be on engagement as opposed to participation. Because if we have that level of engagement and we're asking them questions on a day-over-day basis to catch some of those things that go outside of the snapshot, that's where we can really be successful in helping to manage their health. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. And the other thing not to lose sight about is that we've talked a lot about health here. Total well-being is we actually used 4 pillars of health, where we add in financial, we add in growth and relationship. And you might have somebody who runs every day, who eats healthy, considered to have great biometrics. They see themselves as healthy, but they may be struggling financially, student debt. They may be struggling with, things at home are not the greatest. And that affects health and affects health. So we look at really that holistic, where we're looking at the total well-being of the employee and engaging them, not just on health, but engaging them in other areas that could have an impact on health.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Well, I think it would be fair to open things up for any questions for those who are on the line while I take a look at some of the questions that we're getting via DM. Any questions from those who are on today? Excellent. Well, we did have one question that came up, in terms of stories. Sean, you might have some great input here because you work with a lot of our members individually as well, in addition to your sales responsibilities. What's a good story around someone's, kind of moment where they changed the way that they were looking at things from, I have to participate in this thing one time a year to, oh, I'm going to engage with this every day.
Sure. So we work with an association specifically that does work with municipalities, school districts, et cetera. And early on, you had your 40 plus somethings, you had your 50 plus somethings in terms of age brackets, but they initially saw the platform as like, what is this? Like, why am I clicking on this card? And how is this card relevant to me, right, early on in the game? But as they started to progress through it and interact with it daily, they started to see and notice the changes within the platform and how it became more relevant to them. So I initially, I had people coming to me and inquiring through member services and asking that question. But then when you go back to them a couple months later, they realize, oh my gosh, this is actually learning about me and making it important to me. And again, bringing that value that I talked about earlier, and really seeing the dynamic and the change within that person in terms of what they're asking and what they're looking for, because now they start to see what it's actually doing for them. And that was I think very powerful, especially when you have somebody maybe that's not very technology savvy, but then they realize just from the ease of use within the platform, and how they can simply just interact with it.
Excellent. And well, Dave, this might be a good question for you, given your experience. Is in the industry, is when we look at people talk about plan design a lot, and when we work with brokers, how do we kind of integrate ourselves into their plan design when they're talking to a client?
Well, I think that in plan design, it's more of their whole benefit package to how we integrate, how we can, going beyond what we do in just the health space, but where we're engaging individuals and being able to do customized communications. So you might have a benefit, and let me go back. in our meeting yesterday with the broker. They looked at it yesterday and they said, so I could do a card and educate the employees in specific populations within a group about benefit changes, and do that now at open enrollment, and do that throughout the year to, and communicate with them. Because open enrollments, usually you do the open, we've been notorious for doing open enrollment meetings. The employee walks out the door, they lose 80% of what you've told them. But they saw that as such a value of going beyond what we do in just the well-being experience to the communication and real engagement of those employees. So you can integrate in the plan designs that way. But you start looking at the different things. A good example of working with a work site, voluntary work site carrier that kind of looks at it. They've identified that well-being is important to what they deliver in product. And so when they're delivering that in product, that they see that a solution like we bring to the table can only enhance and actually put that, more meaningful in front of the members they're trying to attract. Great. So there's many different ways that you can engage, from looking at the total benefit solution and plan design.
Wonderful. Kat, this might be more of a question for you. Looking at your crystal ball and thinking about engagement, what's a feature that we have coming down the pipe that you're excited about that's going to help us engage people better from a content perspective?
There are so many. It's hard. I think the ability for members to be able to save or schedule activities, I think that's going to be really powerful, because right now we have a lot of cards in the platform around recipes or workouts, things like that, where when they have the ability to say, I want to do this at 5 o'clock tonight after work, it can send them a little notification reminding them that they scheduled this activity, and kind of give them that nudge to actually go ahead and do it. So I think that would probably be my the feature I'm most excited for.
And Kat, you broke up a little bit there. You said the ability to schedule cards later, right?
Correct. Yeah. Sorry, my connection is poor.
There we go. That's a little better.
Yeah, being able to actually schedule an activity. So somebody can say at 5 o'clock today, I want to go do my workout. They'll get a notification from the platform actually prompting them to do so, and reminding them that, earlier today you said you wanted to work out after work. Now here's your reminder to go do that now and get points for doing so.
Excellent. Well, any other questions coming across for anyone connected here, or anything on Twitter? We'll open it up for a brief moment. All right. Well, I think that's all we have time for today. I think it was a great discussion. Thank you, team, for jumping on and having this conversation. For those listening in, we can check out the replay for this and past Benovate Explores at our newly relaunched website, which looks fantastic at benovate.com/explores. Check it out, and please feel free to give us any feedback you might have. We will not be back for October, but we will be back in 2 months on November 28th for the next installment of Benovate Explores. You folks have a great afternoon, and look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.